Well, hello, happy Hodas. Welcome to our first edition of video conferencing. This is Coco Chanel. As you can see, she still has her St. Patrick's Day scarf on. Don't ask me, it's my wife's thing. But anyway, she's sitting here wanting a little bit of love. She's ready for her afternoon nap now. So, say we'll get rid of Coco for now. All right, Coco. Oh, sorry. Go lay down. Okay, so for those of you that were in class, there really isn't a whole lot new here, but some of you weren't in class on Friday, so I just want to go over some stuff. And yeah, you'll see my chemotherapy stuff's working on my face, so it's quite uncomfortable. But I'm going to walk through the prompts. They've been posted. If you were in class, you got them on Friday. If you're not in class, you didn't, and you can pretty much shut down if you understand everything right now. You don't necessarily have to watch this whole thing. So, but for those of you that were not in class, I'm going to go ahead and I want to let me enter full screen there. I want to go to full screen. Sorry. You enter full screen. There you go. So you don't see my face anymore. So on Friday, I handed this out to walk through what our prompts were. And the idea behind this is using Lincoln's assassination to practice some of our skills of finding primary documents, finding secondary documents, and using our in-class or in-text, citation methods that we have. So there's really three independent prompts. So you want to think of this as three chapters of a book. And so the first prompt says, using your notes and our Brinkley reading, and two authoritative historians, meaning looking them up online. So this could be, Eric Foner, David Blight, James McPherson, Doris Kearns Goodwin, any of the historians we've talked about, or any others that you find. And I want you to write a simple one-page narrative on how Lincoln's assassination affected U.S. history, how it changed. So essentially, what I'm looking for is Lincoln's Reconstruction plan and his view and what he believes the role of the freedmen should be concerning the 13th Amendment, voting rights, how do we bring the southern states back in? So a simple one-page narrative of what Lincoln wanted and then what actually happens a little bit under Johnson with two in-text citations. So I think it's still easiest just to simply use endnotes. So remember, when you write an endnote, it should have the author's name, and it should have the date if it comes from an article or website, or it should have the page if it comes from a book. If there is no author, you can't use it. It's really that simple. If I cannot source the author, I cannot use that for any type of academic research. So one page, again, that's going to be 400 to 500 words. Once you write that prompt and have the in-text citations, all of the works cited will go on its own page. Now, if you choose to use footnotes, then the footnotes would go on that page, but you would still have a work cited. So you're kind of doing it twice. The second prompt is, how did Americans react to Lincoln's death in poems and songs? And you need to find three examples. Now, I also would include paintings, sculptures, any type of other literature type of work as well. So you need to find three samples. So you could find three poems, you could find, or you could even find letters that people wrote about Lincoln's assassination in them. But you need to write a summary of their overall meaning. What is the song or the poem or the letter or the painting? What's happening in it? Describe what you see. Describe what you've read. What's the tone? Is it sad? Is it somber? Is it rejoiceful? Is it there were some rejoicing ones. What symbols or symbolism? Does it use religious symbols? Does it use some sort of power symbols of any sort? You need to provide an excerpt of the example, so nothing more than 100 words. So if you find a poem, you don't need to have the entire poem. You just need to retype up, what the most important stanza, or if there's a repeating part of it, of that. If it's a painting, then you should be able to just have a paste and copy the whole entire painting, or a picture of the sculpture, whatever that might be. That should go in the paper as well. Now, for each one of these samples, you need to have a source. So you need to make sure that you cite that just like you would anything else, and it becomes a primary documentation. Now, here is some limits. So please listen to this. There are two very, very famous poets who wrote on Lincoln's assassination, Walt Whitman and Herman Melville. You can only use one of either of them. You cannot use both Whitman and Melville, and you can only use one total poem from Whitman, or one total poem from Melville. Because if not, everybody would use the same one. So the two most famous is Captain "Oh Captain, My Captain" by Whitman, and "The Martyr" by Melville. So you can only use one of those. You can't use both, and you can't use the other author at all. So find two of them, two others that are not Melville or Whitman is the purpose of that. So in the end, you're writing about a paragraph for each one of the descriptors. So that's kind of like a three paragraph, and you're going to have the excerpt. So you could put those all on its own individual page. So let's say I have an excerpt from "Oh Captain, My Captain," and then describing what the poem is about and what Whitman is writing about and the tone and the symbolism that he uses and being done. Then go to the next page and you find a letter or you find whatever it happens to be. But you need to have the in-text citations there. And so there's really not a page number on that. I'm thinking a page a piece of that, but it's really you're writing a paragraph. And then the other part is you're just using the actual primary document. And then finally, prompt number 3. What is the historiography of Lincoln's presidency? So as we saw throughout our readings and throughout our discussions in class, Lincoln wasn't so beloved in life. It's really not until death, and this idea of Honest Abe and even the idea of the Great Emancipator really comes after Lincoln's death. So relate how historians have viewed his presidency and legacy over time. And so traditionally, that historiography that was written about Lincoln is written by his friends that were around him, his personal secretaries, his law partner. So they write that traditional narrative. And what is that? And then how has this been challenged, or how have other historians then come about and looked at the myth versus the reality of Lincoln? And you need a total of 3 in-text citations for that part of it. And that should be about a page and a half to 2 pages. So when it's all said and done, it says MLA format, but you can use whatever format you want. I really don't care. But then you need to have a separate works cited. So that's a total of 8 citations. You have 2 for prompt 1. Okay. You have 3 because they're all primary for prompt 2, and you have 3 for prompt 3. So that's a total of 8. Now, that doesn't mean that, like prompt 1, I might find a source from Brinkley that talks about his Reconstruction plan, and then I find something on Brinkley about the historiography. It's okay to have the same, but it would be cited in there twice, if you will. So that's what the paper. Now, this isn't due until Friday night at midnight. Technically, if you were in class on Friday, you've had a week to work on it. I would think that total with research and reading, this is probably a good 2 hours of work with this. If there's some sort of issue or problem that you need a little bit more time to get it over the weekend, that's fine. Certainly by Sunday, I would say you need to have it done. I know that there's going to be a lot of things going on, a lot of confusion. This is something new. Nobody's ever really been through this. Nobody's ever had to go through this. So you're witnessing history. You are primary documentarians, if you will, of what's happening. So we'll get through this together. Eventually, after we get back from break, I will have some times where I'll put like twice a day, at least once a week. We can go to Schoology, and there's actually a conferencing part of that where everybody can kind of log in at once and just kind of see and ask any questions that we have. For us, it's important because next year, as we get back to normal school, we'll be taking our IB exam, and so we're going to need to make sure that we cover this very thoroughly. And so the last 2 things that we'll be doing will be the Mexican Revolution and Reconstruction. I'm not sure with the system and the format that we have that we will actually get through the civil rights movement, but we will come back and do that next year. We'll be able to squeeze that in. And also at some point, I'll be introducing the IA, which is our paper that we'll be writing next year too. If I'm your extended essay supervisor as well, we'll want to touch base, and we can even get together in video conference. You and I could arrange that, and we can kind of log that time as well. So important that you get into some sort of rhythm and some sort of set schedule where you're getting yourself up at a decent time, working a couple hours, taking a break, coming back as well. I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot of this from your teachers too. It sounds like we have a pretty good plan, not to overwhelm you. This is probably a little bit more than we would normally do in the 2 or 3 days, but since we'd already started it and we'd already talked about it, we needed to keep pace with this. So make sure you check that you have it on Schoology, that you get to updates. So when it's there, everything that we've done is still in here. I'll also be using Schoology. You'll see that I put a link and paper explanation and a discussion that goes along with this. So make sure you go back and answer that in a little bit of fun. Don't kill yourself with the meme or the TikTok, but just to make sure that you've watched the video and done something with this. So I will check back with you at some point. Again, make sure you get your Schoology updates. If you have any questions, concerns, or whatever, please don't hesitate to email and to reach out to me. So again, this is something new for all of us. I'm sitting here in my PJs with my dog, teaching my class. So I only have 2 classes to teach, and I know that you have 5, 6 to 7 classes that you're working on. So really going to be trying to be mindful of your time from this. So hang in there, be safe, and I'll check back with you just as soon as I can. Bye.